I'm Kathy Brown, a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and certified personal trainer. And I love talking all things nutrition and wellness for active women over 40. Today, I want to talk about undereating. Unfortunately, this is something I talk about a lot because it's still very, very common with women and men, actually, but I work mostly with active women over 40. So we're talking women today. I would argue that a lot of this has to do with the diet industry. And that doesn't seem to be a very controversial take because most of the women I speak with say that they were very much influenced by the diet industry as well. And even if they weren't influenced by the diet industry, maybe their moms were, and that kind of guided their view on nutrition and food and how to fuel their bodies. But I remember, I'm Gen X. Most of my childhood was in the 80s. I remember seeing ads all the time for Slim Fast and Weight Watchers, which is still around, but Jenny Craig and Richard Simmons was on the TV doing his exercises and making little comments and one-liners about how, a moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips, things like nothing tastes as good as skinny. And so right there, you're a child seeing this, it just seems normal to you. My mom also was perpetually dieting. She would make comments about her body if she wasn't feeling good, and she would compare herself to other women. She would even ask us, her kids, oh, I look better than that mom, right? I'm skinnier than that mom. And we didn't question it because she was our mom. We thought this was normal. But this really kind of guided and influenced my feelings about food and how we should strive to be skinny. Skinny is a virtue, and your value is very much linked to what you look like. And I myself started restricting in middle school. It wasn't necessarily intentional. My friends were doing it as well, so I wanted to fit in, and we would eat from the vending machine for lunch. I would have a candy bar and a soda, and I didn't realize there was anything wrong with that because everything I was seeing on TV and watching my mom was less is more when it comes to food. And I didn't link food to survival, that your body needed energy to keep going. And when you're young, you can get away with it without noticing any consequences. But it continued into high school. I was still eating that terrible candy bar and soda lunch, but I was dancing twice a day and, 3 to 4 hours a day. I was skipping breakfast because I wanted to sleep in and just, I raced out the door, rolled out of bed, put on my leotard, and raced out the door to get to practice. And so there was no breakfast. My lunch was basically a candy bar and a soda. And then I'd go practice after school too. And, dinner was a normal dinner. I mean, sometimes I'd eat a lot, but it was because I starved myself all day and I didn't know any better. This was not intentional. And it continued into adulthood, maybe not quite so extreme, but skipping breakfast, not really eating a lot for lunch. Sometimes dinner would just be like chips and salsa. I clearly was not a dietitian at this point. But when I started running distance, I really got into nutrition because I had always had IBS. I've always had constipation prone IBS, and distance running can make that worse. And so I started doing a lot of research about eating for distance running with IBS and just became fascinated with nutrition. decided to go back and become a dietitian. Unbeknownst to me, I had an injury at the end of my first full marathon, and it was an overuse injury. It was a torn ligament in the ball of my foot. And now that I know what I know, I 100% believe it was because I was under eating throughout my training. Not because I had a great plan and I had a coach, and so I wasn't adding mileage too fast. I really honestly think it was because I was under fueled. But even in the research that I was doing for nutrition for running with IBS, nothing was ever said about the need to eat more when you're increasing volume of exercise. And so I just ate like normal and continued to train. And I ended up with an injury, and I didn't even realize it until after I became a dietitian. But I do believe that underfueling had a lot to do with that. But so then I went back to school and became a dietitian in my mid 40s. So this had been going on for a long time. I had been under eating for a very long time. And even knowing the physiology behind why over restriction is a bad idea for long-term weight management, and how over restricting on an ongoing basis can cause all kinds of health issues, including bone intensity and muscle loss and hormonal imbalances, which, let's be honest, in perimenopause is already happening with our reproductive hormones. We don't need to add to that. But even knowing what I know, I still sometimes find myself under eating. It's not conscious. I'm not doing it because I want to lose weight, because I know that doesn't work. Rationally, I know that doesn't work, but it's almost like an automatic. If my pants don't button one day as well as they did before, or as easily as they did before, or I'm feeling bloated, I just automatically find myself eating less. And so luckily, I have gotten to know the signs and symptoms that my body gives me when I'm under eating. But I'm telling you this because it's normal and natural. I've talked to so many women in their 40s and 50s and 60s who have very similar tales of, the diet industry influencing them, their mom's behavior and outlook on their own bodies influencing them, or even their moms or other people in their family or their friends making comments about their bodies that cause them to want to shrink themselves, to go to extremes, to look a different way. And whatever your story, if you have that history of feeling like you have to restrict, I encourage you to really shift that mindset as much as you can. I know it's hard, but especially over 40, especially through perimenopause and postmenopause, we are so prone to losing muscle and bone density that we really need to focus on staying strong so that we can continue to be vital and active women well into our golden years. And the only way to do that is to fuel your body. Yes, you need the exercise. Exercise doesn't work without energy, and that fueling doesn't work without exercise. So the two together have to work hand in hand to keep you strong and active as you get older. So fueling, very, very important. And some of the signs and symptoms that you can look out for to see if maybe you are under eating is fatigue. That may seem kind of obvious, but a lot of people look to everything else to try and explain their fatigue, but they're not looking at how much they're eating. So if you are fatigued and it doesn't seem like there's an obvious reason, like you're sleeping, there's nothing highly stressful going on in your life, things seem to be normal, and all of a sudden you're just fatigued, take a look at how much you're eating. Irritability and brain fog can be a sign. Your brain is a major consumer of the energy that you take in. So when your body feels like it needs to conserve energy, your brain suffers a little bit. Constipation and bloating. This is a big one that a lot of people don't expect. That's one of my signs and symptoms is constipation and bloating when I'm not eating enough. And really, it kind of comes down to when you are under eating, your body conserves energy. And one of the ways it conserves energy is it slows down digestion. Slower digestion means the food is sitting in your GI tract for longer. And the fermentation that happens in your gut has more time. You have more time for that food to get fermented. And so that creates more gas. And slower movement obviously can lead to constipation. Frequent illness is a sign because your immune system needs energy. If you're injury prone, that's also a sign. Another one is not sleeping well. This is one that gets me is I will wake up 3 o'clock in the morning and be wired, likely because my blood sugar dropped and cortisol kicked in. So if you're having trouble staying asleep, take a look at how much you're eating. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list. I mean, there are other signs that your body may give you, and your body may not give you some of these signs. Everybody is unique. Your own body is going to tell you in its own way. So start paying attention. What are some things that are going on in your body and that don't seem normal? And take a look at how much you're eating. See if maybe you need to increase that a little bit. For me, what eating enough looks like is I eat 3 solid meals a day. I have a pretty big and hearty breakfast because that is the foundation for the energy that I'll need to get me through the rest of my day. So I have a big oatmeal bowl that has Greek yogurt, a little bit more protein, strawberries, and a handful of dark chocolate chips. So just a sprinkling of dark chocolate chips makes it feel like a decadent dessert, and it's. I look forward to this breakfast. It's amazing. Then I make sure I have a good solid lunch, balance, protein, vegetables, good form of starch, and then I have a good balanced dinner. And I fuel around my workouts. This is a big one that a lot of women are skipping. I fuel before my workouts and I fuel after my workouts. How much I fuel before the workouts really kind of depends on the workout, how intense, how long. But I always have some carbohydrates before I start a workout, even if it's just a little bit. And then after the workout, I focus on protein. I get some carbohydrates in too, because if I consume carbohydrates after the workout, then that protein is able to do what it's supposed to do and go towards building muscle. But definitely make sure I get a good source of protein after my workouts. A good rule of thumb is to get at least 20 to 30 grams of protein in within 1 to 2 hours of your workout. And that'll help stop that muscle breakdown. Fueling your workouts is not working against your goals, okay? A lot of women say, I don't fuel before or after my workouts because I'm afraid that's going to cause me to gain weight, or it's going to counteract all of the work that I'm putting in at the gym. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Actually, it's quite the opposite. When you fuel your workouts, you minimize that muscle breakdown, and it helps you recover faster so that you can work out again the next time and give it your all. So I definitely recommend fueling around your workouts. If you have questions about how much you need, how much calories, how much protein, then I encourage you to work with a dietitian who's well versed in sports nutrition and nutrition for peri and postmenopause. I do take one-to-one sessions for coaching, and if you're interested in seeing if we would be a good fit, you can go to my website. It's KathyBrownNutrition.com. That's Kathy with a K. On my services page, there's a link where you can just book a 30-minute call with me for free to talk about your goals and any issues you're dealing with. And we can talk about my process to see if we're a good fit to work together. So check that out, KathyBrownNutrition.com. Just book a discovery call with me. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm putting these videos on Substack as well. And I'm also posting articles on Substack and other musings. So I encourage you to go over and subscribe to my Substack channel, which is Strong and Fueled After 40. If you're watching this on Substack and you haven't subscribed, I encourage you to do so. And I think that's all I have for today. But thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.